Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us right here on The Right View. Tonight, I am so excited to be joined by someone who I just got to say, probably the most interesting person I've met in Southeast Florida. She's a vibrational medicine practitioner. She's my friend, Erica Anandamayi. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show. Did I get your last name right?
You did.
I did.
Was so perfect.
I was really concerned with that because it's a lot. I mean, but my maiden name is Unaska, so that's also a lot too.
That's a lot. That's a lot more than Anandamayi.
Trump is easier these days.
Much easier.
Yeah. So a vibrational medicine practitioner. So for everybody out there, when I first met you, we met at the gym, and you're just one of these people who I feel like everyone is drawn to. People come to you. You're one of those that gives out hugs all the time. I want you to tell your story in a few minutes about COVID and the hugs, but tell me what it is you do for a vibrational medicine practitioner, because you've done a lot of very cool things for me, but what does that mean?
Thanks. I mean, first of all, for having me here with you to share this beautiful space that you've created. So vibrational medicine is something, honestly, that I just kind of created myself.
Oh,
in essence. So ever since I was a little girl, I've always had this availability to see beyond seeing, to feel beyond, feeling. Very empathic, very intuitive. And unlike where we are today on the planet, where there's so much information, you can Google search anything and it pops up these beautiful definitive essences of all the spiritual, terms. When I was embarking on this journey, there was no information, but maybe one or two books. And so I kind of had to jump and build my wings on the way down and figure out this beautiful world of energetics and vibrational medicine on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the way you use it, at least the way you've helped me, is through massage. And the way you kind of work with the human body, I think, is amazing. But on top of that, it seems like you really understand people, and you get people's different moods and their different feelings. And I mean, we say the word vibe, but that's what it is. That's what we're talking about. And I think it's very interesting because at first glance, most people would look at you and say, okay, Erica's into kind of all of this very feel good, everybody's my best friend type of stuff. You must obviously be very liberal minded. Now, I think you were a very liberal minded person in some respects, but I was shocked once you and I became friends to learn that you're actually a Trump supporter. Yeah. Are people surprised when they find that out?
Absolutely. First of all, people are surprised about, like you shared, a lot of things about my existence in general. But it is something people are very taken aback with when I say, I am a huge Trump supporter, actually, and I will continue to support such an individual as Trump in our, society today. And I mean, the reason at the end of the day when people ask me, they're like, well, why are you not Democratic? Why are you not, this or that or the other thing? And I share, I go off of vibration, any part of my life.
Yeah.
I trust my intuitive self. I trust my intelligent self. And I combine the both in order to, kind of co-create my authentic self. And my authentic self feels really powerful and positive about the individual that Trump presents himself to be, and that he also reflects himself to be in our society in the now, in the today world that we're all coexisting in. And so that's where my voting comes in. That's where my support comes in. It's very simplistic in my mind. It's just a knowing.
How do people react? Because I assume a lot of people, they make assumptions. They say, oh, well, because let's be honest, the mainstream media tells us that if you are a Trump supporter, you look a certain way, you probably live in a certain area, you have certain characteristics that fit a mold. And obviously, that's not true. There are so many people who believe in the things that my father-in-law talked about, putting America first, common sense approach to things, taking care of people here in America before we take care of the rest of the world, allowing people their personal freedoms and freedoms to decide what's best for them. But what is the response? Are people surprised to learn that?
I don't think so, because once they get to know me,
that's true.
Yeah, they totally understand the alignment, because number one, my rule in my household with my kids before anything is always tell the truth. And the one thing I loved, even way back in Celebrity Apprentice days when I used to watch.
Oh, I love it. I didn't know that.
I was a huge fan because I loved like just the idea of it all. But was the truth factor, was that raw authenticity coming through unapologetically. And I was like, wow. I mean, my breath was taken away at some of the ways that he responded to individuals. And that's the difference. There's a huge dichotomy happening on the planet between reactivity and responsiveness. And your father-in-law is so responsive.
Yeah.
He's actually not reactive at all.
That's true.
It's the individuals who are viewing him that are reactive, who are not responsive, which is why he appears to have a sense of reactivity. But he's not. He's incredibly upper consciousness intelligent, where his authenticity permeates into his responsiveness.
Wow.
And that's what I love most about him. So when I express that to people and they get that from me as an individualistic person myself, they're like, okay, I'm starting to see the alignments.
Wow.
The second is what you said, freedom. I am a big advocate of freedom, not only in the density we are existing in right now, this third D, right, this earth, but also in the fourth D. Being able to really tap into the unseen world and allowing the alignment of the world we're existing in now and the world unseen to be a collaborative or a Unitarian society in so many ways. And I feel like he also presents that in a lot of his, speeches and a lot of the way he communicates who he is as an individual. And then when I met you, you're exactly that way too. You're so, you're so beautiful in that. You're just so welcoming and you're so easy and accessible with your own sharing of your own light.
Well, that's so nice.
Yeah,
Thank
you're very vulnerable and open, and that's one of my favorite things about you.
Well, thank you. Well, and if you ask people out there, they may be surprised to hear that because people in our family, Erica, as you may not be surprised to hear, are painted very differently. I'm sure I'm a horrible person to a lot of people, but I appreciate that. Thank you. That's so nice. And I think a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, from a lot of different backgrounds, were drawn to my father-in-law because of the things you just said. And even if they didn't realize it themselves, what's interesting that you said was about the reactive, right? The people who hate him, I guess, so much are reacting to him, right?
Absolutely.
And I would say that they're triggered, right? That's essentially what we say. Like they see things that he says, whether it's in a speech, whether it's on, some social media platform, and they react to it. But I don't know, do you feel like there would ever come a point, hopefully it's in the next 18, 20 months or so, that people could possibly see him differently, or is this sort of baked in? Like we're always going to be in this space right now?
Absolutely not. Everybody's available for evolution all the time. It's constantly there. Every morning you're present. You wake up in the morning, you feel your heartbeat. Guess what? You're still here. You have an opportunity to keep expanding. So one of the things I think that goes hand in hand with the reactivity or the nature of people's strong opinions about other people in general, father-in-law, right, is their lack of creating their own narrative. So a lot of people have a narrative or a story that they've been told or a story that they continue to tell themselves over and over again. And it kind of permeates or saturates within their cellular structure, causing the greatest dissonance, which is the lack of availability for growth. So if you're telling yourself, and I don't care whether it's a dualistic sense, positive, negative, the same stories over and over again, without the accessibility to be available for something new to come into your consciousness, to expand where your belief structure is in any given moment, then you've already failed doing life. Life is not supposed to be so stagnant.
Yeah.
Nothing else natural in our world is stagnant. It's constantly shifting, transforming, transmuting. So when individuals come out so powerfully, so strongly with one particular train of thought, I judge that very harshly actually, but in a way of, I get it, but also in a way of, why don't you just turn to the left for a minute? Turn to the right for a minute. It's not so straightforward. Use your peripherals. Allow the expansion to take place, and you might surprise yourself.
How do you think we got here? Like, were people sort of always like this? Because it feels, I think, to so many of us, like things are very extreme right now, right? And they're very very fixated on what it is they know, and sometimes on both sides of the aisle. But how did we get here? Was it always like this, and we're just exposed to it more now, do you think? Or why do you think people have ended up like in this space?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So, in my humble opinion, I think it's this combination of overwhelmingness coupled with underwhelmingness. So, a lot of people appear overwhelmed by life because they're so underwhelmed by their own existence and experience of how they're presenting life within their own individualistic self. And it's very difficult to, like I share, transmute through that or transcend from that particular stagnation or belief structure. I don't think we've always been like that, actually.
I don't either. It feels
I
like
think
it's gotten worse.
A bit more intense,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of propaganda that leads us away from actually going within and asking ourselves the hard questions that require the level of honesty and ownership for the expansion to take place. It's not an easy journey at all. And I also think that we're really just in a state of projection because of the propaganda.
Yes.
So take a moment, society, take a moment, hold your, heart space and say to yourself, like, is this my truth? And if this is my truth, how can I expand even more on this truth? Because there's going to be more to it.
Yeah.
And those are the questions we need to start asking ourselves, I think.
I had a conversation with you recently about COVID. And I moved down to Florida, and we didn't meet until last fall. So, we've known each other a little over a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And so I wasn't here in Florida whenever COVID was sort of the big deal that it was at a certain time. And I mean, fortunately, Florida, as we all know, did an amazing job of allowing people to continue living their lives down here. Really didn't force kids out of school, allowed businesses to stay open. It was a very positive thing for the state. That said, there were rules that were put in place by certain entities, by certain businesses, companies, etc. And you had some interesting things that happened to you during COVID. And I think a lot of people would appreciate hearing how you dealt with it.
Okay, so let's
start. Tell me.
Off.
Well, because the one that I liked the most was that you never wore a mask one time during COVID. Is that accurate?
I never did.
Not once. But why? Because so many people were like, and I was one of them. Like, I got to get on an airplane. I've got to go places. I need to go in the grocery store and get stuff for my kids. Did I find the masks ridiculous? Was there any scientific backing to what we were doing with them? Absolutely not. But so many of us were like, you got to, you can't fight all the fights. No. You actually fought that fight.
I did, but it didn't come off in my mentality as I was fighting something.
Well, right.
It was more like, I love the Gandhi quote, be the change. And that's the way I live my life every single day, regardless of what is happening in the macrocosm or around me. It's what is my truth? Again, what is my ownership? Because at the end of the day, guess who's laying in bed at night by themselves, having to go through what they express to the planet? Me.
Yeah.
Nobody else is around me, so it doesn't even matter. So my inner dialogue is always, is this something that I'm proud of? Is this something that's aligned with my truth? And if the answer is no, I won't participate in it, bottom line.
And you're very strong on that.
Very strong
I love it.
on that, yeah. So a couple instances very quickly, like I shared, I'm a mom of 2 kids. So that was very kind of interesting to navigate with them,
right.
A bit difficult because there was a lot of communication to them to help prepare them for my decisions or my actions for myself. One instance, I was at a bookstore, Barnes & Noble, and I went in and I was going to get some homeschool books because that's when kind of the world had shut down, and I knew I was going to homeschool at that point because I knew I was not going to send my kids back to school having to wear masks. And so I was committed to that. And a gentleman started following me, an employee of Barnes & Noble started following me around the store, and he started screaming horrific things at me, telling me I'm going to kill other people, I'm going to kill my children.
Nice.
Just really over the top. And I was like, if you really feel like I'm doing something that is putting someone's in harm's way, please call the police on me. And I challenged him and I said, if you really feel I'm doing something illegal,
Right.
call the police on me right now. I said, but if not, please help me find the books I'm looking for so I can get out of here as quickly as possible. And in that moment, my children were very scared. They were like, Mom, are you going to jail? You know? And I looked at my son, who at that time was 8 years old, and I said, buddy, if I need to go to jail, I will. I said, that's how strongly I am and feel about this movement, that we should not have to participate in anything in this beautiful country that was founded on freedom.
Right.
That we do not personally align with or feel like includes a sense of freedom within our own reflection or our own communication as a human being here in the now.
And how your son was pretty understanding, actually.
My son knows me. He sees me clearly.
Like,
My
I've done
kids
this
both
before.
do. Yeah, he knows my truth, because again, that first rule, we don't lie to each other in my house. And then just moving forward from there, like, I realized very quickly how society was taking a downward turn. And to a lot of people that were lacking eye contact, there was like this sense of, talk about vibrational medicine, right? A sense of our biofield or our energetic self that was getting repressed and depressed, and people were hunched over. And
you could feel it. People were truly, it was such a depressing time, and it was so, I felt like it was so unnatural for us as human beings not to be within each other's presence and company and space and share space with each other, because that's what we do as humans, and that's the way that we always have existed. And it felt so counterintuitive, I think, to so many of us. And I do think a lot of people were depressed, and obviously you saw that happening too.
Yes, and it was devastating, especially being someone who was born and raised here. I'm not only just a Floridian, I'm a Jupiter-tarian. Like, Jupiter has been in my blood for 40 years. And so I decided, again, be the change. What are you going to do about it, Eric? Are you going to complain? Are you going to talk about it? No, I'm going to offer free hugs. So I went to my local Publix in Tequesta, and at first they told me that I can't be there because I was trying to solicit something. And I was like, solicit what, a hug?
Like you're not making money off of this.
Yeah. So then the general manager came out, and I wish I would remember his name. I hope he still works there if he's watching this. And he said, you know what, I love what you're doing. He's like, just move a couple feet away from the ATM machine. I said, no worries. So I had my kids hugging kids. I was hugging adults.
Wow.
And I think I counted over 90 hugs that day that I gave.
Wow.
People crumbling in my arms, crying, saying it was the first hug they got in 4 months. Like, it was unbelievably moving. And so I decided to do that moving forward, and I did several dozen times, just to give that sense of connection. Because, you know, newborns, babies, like, they'll die if they're not held.
It's true. They actually, that's the way they tell you whenever you have a baby, you have to have that skin-to-skin contact, because it's so important to that baby's development and ability to survive, you know?
Thrive in general.
And so for us as humans, I mean, the lack of not just being in one another's presence, but the lack of contact, like physical contact with one another, it was so bad for so long. And were you surprised that people were so, so excited to participate in that, and the responses you got were so emotional?
No, I was not surprised at all, because again, at the end of the day, regardless of what I am or am not, I'm a human being.
Yeah.
And I can tap into that empathic self. And I know I wanted a hug. I know I was feeling like I just want to have a nice conversation with someone that has nothing to do with the fear-mongering that's currently in the trajectory on the planet. Like, that's there. We know it's there. We don't need to feed it. We don't need to accelerate it. Let's take it back to the moment and be in our presence with each other. And just remember, at the end of the day, the one connecting factor is, guess what? We are all not getting out alive. All of us. Regardless of whether that's happening.
That's terrifying, but it's true.
But it's true. And that's the one thing we fear most as a society and a humanity and in a culture.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the thing. Like, okay, so you have this opportunity to express yourself and live your life in a playful, beautiful, free way. We're so lucky here.
Yeah.
Are you going to do that, or are you going to just twiddle your thumbs, look at the clock, count down, each and every day that goes by?
Until it's over.
Until it's over. Like, what's your choice? You're getting out either way, the same way.
There's the same result.
Door.
Yeah, the same result happens.
Yeah.
But people are still, I feel like, Erica, there are so many people who are still living in fear. And I see them. I mean, I've talked about it on this show so many times. I see people still driving around with masks on. And look, I am all for, if you want to do something and it makes you feel better, then you should do it. But it is really sad to consider that there are people who will probably live the rest of their lives living with this sense of fear and not participating in society. Howard Stern, for example, I heard it took him 2 years to even go out to dinner. He went out, I think it was this summer one time, I heard for the first time since the beginning of COVID. What are you doing? You're not living your life. I mean, why do you think people are still kind of stuck in this space? Because a lot of people, I think, are.
I think it's this disposition we have, or some of us have, to allow our distraction to be our greatest asset. And, it's that whole, again, underwhelming, overwhelming type of, dualistic sense. So take someone like Howard Stern, ask him, the best thing I would say is just ask him why he's chosen to allow that particular expression of his life to be so present. But I think other individuals, are in such a state of fear, and this is not my definition, is false evidence appearing real. That's why people
Love an
are
acronym.
in a state of fear. And what's the opposite of fear? We know it's not joy, it's love. And a lot of people do not access the tools available to present love within themselves, to receive love, to give love. There's a lot of misconception happening about that. So if you're not in a space where you can really care for yourself and love yourself deeply, and again, ask yourself those deeper questions to be in full ownership of your experience as a human being present on the planet at this time, how can you expect anybody to even be capable enough to say, is this mask really something I want to participate in? They just don't have the bandwidth at this time.
Yeah. I mean, and unfortunately, I'm afraid there are probably so many people who are going to just continue down this path. And it's really sad. I do wonder, obviously, here we are, January of 2023. I mean, this country's been through a lot in a short period of time. We've had some highs, we've had some lows. I won't say when we hit all those, but I think everybody knows exactly when they were. Where do you think we're headed as a country? Because obviously my hope is that we get back to a place where everybody is thriving again, where this country is really running on all cylinders. And of course, that is with Donald Trump in the White House, in my opinion, and 2025 when he's inaugurated as the 47th president of the United States. But I mean, where do you feel we're headed? Is there anything that you, like energetically, can feel happening within the country right now?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I talk a lot about this actually with close friends.
Oh, good.
But, I think we're in a trajectory right now where we need to honestly buckle up a bit more.
Oh, it's going to get worse.
Yeah, it's going to get a bit more. And I don't like to use the word worse or better. I just think we're really in a powerful position on the planet right now to go under some amazing transmutative work. And transmutation is very different than transformation, because transmutation is alchemizing, meaning that we have to be participants in what is actually occurring in the change process. So instead of being in a state where we continue to exist outside of ourselves, outside of our mental, emotional states, really asking ourselves, again, the deeper question, what is my truth? How can I provide and create in my community what I wish to see, not only in my own lives, but in the rest of the lives of the people on the planet? So, but that's going to take a lot of friction, with any growth. Growth, whether we think it's good or bad, is painful. Yeah. It's painful as fuck, actually. It's never easy. Growth is never easy, because guess what happens when you grow? You expand. Yeah. And expansion hurts. It just does. So it's realistic to say within the next several years, we are still going to be growing so much as a nation, so much as a world, so much as a galaxy in that essence. Yeah. And so to come away and say, do you think we're going to get some reprieve here? I think it's exclusive to the individual. I think it's subjective to the participant. Do you wish to have a bit of reprieve? Then guess what? You're going to have to do the harder work now in order to combat the chaos that's going to ensue when it happens. And that's with all parts of life. All parts of life.
Well, I mean, I think that people probably already feel what you're saying, right? We've all kind of felt what's going on, and it does feel like maybe we're in a transitional time as a country. We're moving in a direction where, and you're right, maybe it's growth is a good thing, but growth does hurt, and growth is hard and challenging. I mean, you think back to the foundation of this country and the things that had to happen in order to form a country as amazing as the United States of America. So the advice is buckle up.
Yeah,
that's what we got to do.
Put your seatbelts on.
Get ready.
And especially, in this shift, because more truth is being revealed. And that's the most beautiful part,
Isn't it,
you guys, is like truth will always happen. Like the universe is far too intelligent to make any sort of mistakes. And I actually believe that wholeheartedly. And so just keep being available for truth, but don't cling to one truth. Keep expanding. Keep kind of poking the holes to let the light in. Because as we've seen, what has occurred recently,
We have seen.
all of a sudden,
Yeah.
more truth is being revealed. And guess what? It goes against the original truth. So keep your peripherals about you, people.
Yes,
buckle
always.
up, but keep your awareness intact.
Stay ready.
Yes.
Stay ready at all times. All right, what is one piece of advice you might be able to give someone watching or listening right now that could help them in their life in some capacity, either be more open or just kind of live a freer life, so to speak?
Wow. Okay, one piece.
I know.
So-
we don't have a 3-hour-long show.
Yes. So I'll just share basically what I would tell myself in that position. One of the greatest practices I've ever encompassed is a practice of what I do when I wake up in the morning. And it just sets my day right, and it honestly puts me in a position immediately in that inner dialect of how do I encompass more freedom? How do I encompass more, presence within my being? And when I wake up in the morning, I put my hands on my heart. I feel my heart beating. Your heartbeat and your breath are the two constants that you don't ever really have to think about controlling. You don't have to think about, well, how am I going to manage this? How am I going to, do this throughout the day? It's the gift of our being.
Yeah.
So I give gratitude for that. And I say, all right, motherfucker, you're here. You are here, Erica. Let's go, Sky Daddy. What do you have planned for me today? So after I feel my heart beating, it's a literal immediate surrendering to my day. I ask the universe, I ask Creator, send me where I am needed most. Help me be present where I am required in the most highest vibratory place. And I surrender to that, and I go, and I exist with one intention in mind, and that's leave every single person better than I find them. Because it's not about those people, it's about my expression and my reflection through my connection with others. So start with the connection with yourself every morning. Just, wow, I'm still here. I still have a lot to do, obviously. My life's not over, otherwise it would be over. Into that transitional energy of reflection and connection with all sentient beings, especially with yourself.
You're like a Girl Scout. The Girl Scout motto
Girl
is
Scout.
leave every space better than you found it. Erica's the Girl Scout.
I was a Girl Scout. I was a brownie, and then I got into soccer. So.
Oh no, I was a Girl Scout too. What was your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Oh, I think it still is peanut butter patty.
Wait, is that the one with the chocolate?
Yep.
Yeah, those are the
yeah.
best. Everybody likes Thin Mints. I mean, I can eat a Thin Mint, but I got to tell you, tagalongs. That's what they were called, the tagalongs.
Okay.
Or you're talking about the one that's a
I'm not
sandwich.
eating Thin Mints. I'm eating the most high caloric.
I know. Why is
cookie.
it? Why are they the worst?
If I'm gonna eat a cookie, it's gonna be the best cookie ever.
Or the
Like,
Samoas, the
Yeah.
coconut ones. I also like too.
Those are really good.
I know. Is it Girl Scout cookie season? Okay. Well, listen, I think that there's so much to talk about with you, and I'm sure we'll have you back. There's more to discuss because there's more going on and more truth, as you say, being revealed every day. But Erica, if people want to reach you, how do they find you?
Oh gosh, so it's so funny. I only work off referrals, but I have an Instagram feed called Jupiter Mystic, and so just reach out to me there.
Jupiter Mystic. Well, Erica, thank you for joining us here on The Right View. And everybody at home, as always, thanks for joining us. We'll see you back here next time for more.